Hello Oscar, and welcome to Mission Control, Telford, UK, where we will be looking at the Mars Rover landing Perseverance, which is about to land in approximately 18.5 minutes. We'll take you through to Mission Control in a moment, but I just want to remind you about why this is such an important mission, and also remind you about the fact that your name is on the Mars rover. So if you remember back to July last year, of course you won't, but you would have seen the video by now, I hope. You will know that on the 20th of July 2020, the Mars Perseverance rover launched from Earth, and it's been travelling very, very fast, about twice the speed of a bullet, towards Mars, and it's taken about 7 months to get there, and it's now the 18th of February, and in about 17 minutes or so, hopefully, the rover itself will land on the Martian surface. And this is the trajectory it took. Around about 2 months, it was between Earth and Mars, and then what it did was essentially a trajectory to catch up to Mars here after about 7 months' time. And if you remember, the rover looks like this. It's got all sorts of instruments on it, including cameras and robotic arms and special measurement devices to drill into the Martian soil and measure the composition of the soil. And importantly, it's got these 6 legs so that it can rover or move around the Martian landscape. And just to remind you where it's going to go, one of the primary focuses of this mission is to see if they can detect signatures of life or signs of life on Mars. Mars is around about the same age as a planet Earth, and about 3.5 billion years ago or so, there was a lake in a place called Jezero Crater, and we're sending the rover to the crater to see if we can find signs of life. Now they're just about to detach the heat rover from the main spacecraft. There it goes. So obviously this isn't a...
We have indication of cruise stage separation as confirmed by the spacecraft.
That was a simulation of the separation.
We're off on a good start.
Not actually a video
In 1
feed of
minute,
it.
Perseverance's landing software will wake up and begin the signal preparation for entry. The first action it will do is to fire warm-up pulses with its entry thrusters. These pulses ensure that the spacecraft gets the thrust that it wants during entry interface. We're about 9 minutes from entry interface.
So you can hear Mission Control there going over.
Now the vehicle's on its helmet. It's turning itself in the direction facing the heat shield toward Mars, and will eventually hitting the top of the atmosphere. We're not far away. This is going to go very quickly.
Okay, so this is really exciting now. We're about 14 minutes away from the actual landing, but we'll probably be entering the atmosphere in around about 7 minutes time.
By the cruise stage as it passes through our beam to the Earth.
Telecom indicated actually that we could see a signal that the cruise stage went between the Perseverance entry capsule and Earth. So we saw a little blip, the data stream indicating cruise stage separation.
Okay, that's really good. So cruise stage separation occurred. We'll just leave a Mission Control for a moment, because here we are. Look, atmosphere entry will be in 8 minutes and 36 seconds. Okay, and then from there it will enter the so-called 7 minutes of terror, which is essentially the 7 minutes it takes for the entry capsule, this thing down here. Okay, well, it will essentially, this capsule it will take 7 minutes once it hits the Martian atmosphere. 7 minutes to slow down inside the atmosphere. Parachutes will deploy. The heat shield will be rejected, and essentially a landing system with retro-firing rockets will leave the capsule, and hopefully there'll be an animation of all of this, and essentially a sky crane will lower the rover onto the Martian surface whilst hovering above the land. So essentially it's got to slow down from something like twice the speed of a bullet to around about 3 miles an hour. So it's a vast difference in speed that it has to lose. So as I said, we're hoping to land in Jezero crater about 3.5 billion years ago. We would have had water, liquid water in it, and that's where we think we're most likely to find signs of life. Now, the Jezero crater doesn't look like this at all. It's essentially a dust bowl, but we might be able to detect signs of previous life. And who knows? Maybe there's still life there in a small amount of water in the soil. We don't know. And just to remind you that on the rover itself, at the very front, are 3 silicon chips. One of which has your name etched into it. I think it's the center one here. And you have, as proof of that, your boarding pass, which has your name, Oscar, launch site Cape Canaveral on the 20th of July 2020, arrival site Jezero crater. Here's a number of miles that your name would have travelled, over 313 million miles, and all this way here. So yeah, it's very exciting. Your name is about to land on the Martian surface, we hope. I mean, one way or another it's going to land. I mean, there's for sure it will land on the Martian surface now. Whether it lands in one piece or not, we don't know. But let's go back to mission control.
And streaming it to Earth in near real time. There are a few expected short outages, such as when we have a plasma blackout or when we enter the peak heating phase. Aside from these outages caused by the plasma blackout, antenna switching, or high dynamic events, spacecraft events, we should have telemetry until about 90 seconds after landing. A plasma blackout is when the signal from Perseverance isn't strong enough to make it through the superheated, super fast air flowing around the spacecraft.
So she's basically telling you about the fact that during the descent of the capsule, it gets so hot that the air or the Martian atmosphere essentially turns into high energy plasma, and that plasma stops any signals from coming out of the capsule. So we won't be able to detect anything from the capsule for some time as the capsule enters the atmosphere, but hopefully once it's on the surface it will beam back a signal to the orbiting satellite that's orbiting around Mars. I mean, there are many, but there's one in particular that it will speak to, and then that satellite will relay the information to Earth. So we're just over 4 minutes now between
we don't need these 1 to 0,
entry,
is what he said.
Entry atmosphere interface.
We really need it for our own
we'll just
health and
listen
well-being today to keep our nerves in control.
Around this time, a second spacecraft, Maven, should begin picking up telemetry from Perseverance and will continue to record that telemetry until several minutes post-landing. We won't get that data for several hours after landing as it's being recorded, and then will be forwarded to Earth later. We are continuing to receive heartbeat tones, indicating that everything is nominal. We're currently at about 3 minutes until entry interface.
So every second or so, the capsule beams back a little beep, 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 to let the satellite know that it's okay, and then the satellite will beam that back to Earth to let us know it's okay. I'm hoping that they'll show some sort of animation of the entry.
The interface is nothing more than just an arbitrary place in the sky that we define to be above the atmosphere. But from that point on, there's definitely atmosphere, and above it there is
We are 2 minutes from entry interface. Perseverance to transmit heartbeat tones, indicating everything is nominal.
Great. So everything's not, when they say nominal, that means everything's normal. So just to explain these 2 timers down the bottom, one of them is my timer, that's the one in white. That's the time, approximate time of the landing of the capsule, and the one in orange is the time at which the spacecraft enters the Martian atmosphere.
As it gets closer to Mars, Perseverance is actually being pulled in by gravity and accelerating. By the time Perseverance reaches entry interface point, you should be going just under 5.4 kilometers per second. We're at about
5.4 kilometers a second.
90 seconds from entry interface, and standing by for Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter to pick up the telemetry.
What's also really exciting about this mission, loads of things, but 2 things in particular, is that for the first time we will actually get footage of the landing itself. So there are cameras everywhere inside the spacecraft on the rover that are going to essentially record the video footage of the parachutes opening, video footage of the sky crane operating, the rover thrusters firing, and all of that. Second really interesting thing is it's the first time ever we have sent a flying vehicle to another planet. So there's a small vehicle, small helicopter-like vehicle on the underside of the rover itself, which is going to be deployed partway through the mission, which should have something like 90 seconds flight time, and that vehicle will be used to scout out locations, paths for the rover to travel, to see whether there are any sort of obstacles in its way, and also just a great thing that it's actually another flying machine on a different planet. So here we go, we're going to enter the 7 minutes of terror now.
5.3 kilometers per second, and an altitude of 150 kilometers from the surface of Mars.
It's exciting, isn't it? Oh, we've got, oh, there's Jezero Crater, look, in the distance.
We have confirmation entry interface. Perseverance is currently going 5.3 kilometers per second at an altitude of about 120 kilometers from the surface of Mars.
This is so scary. Look, it's going at 30 times the speed of sound. It's just 100 kilometers high now.
The ship is now waiting until it begins feeling the atmosphere slow down. Once there is enough atmosphere, it will start controlling its path to the landing target.
So the atmosphere gets thicker and thicker and thicker as you go down closer and closer to the Martian surface. And when it reaches a certain point, it will actually use thrusters on the outside of the spacecraft to orient itself and make sure it's going in the right direction.
Our current velocity is about 5.36 kilometers per second and an altitude of about 67 kilometers from the surface.
We are probably seeing emerald plasma blackout at this point.
Right. So at the plasma blackout, we won't receive any heartbeat blip signals from the spacecraft anymore. And that's when the team will get really worried, because they'll be waiting for those blips to turn back on. I mean, don't forget, many people in this team have been working on this project for over a decade.
We have
A decade of their lives.
is
now engineers,
performing bank reversals in the atmosphere.
scientists,
These are the steps in order to control its distance to the landing target. Perseverance has just passed through the point of maximum deceleration and has indicated that it felt approximately 10 Earth G's of deceleration.
Oh wow, it's
Tomorrow
really
and walk again.
10 Earth G's, so that's really close.
We saw a small outage of the
Look at this guy's leg shaking, he's so
from
nervous.
Mars reconnaissance orbiter during that peak heating phase, likely caused by the plasma blackout.
Sometimes this does go
Perseverance is still
wrong as well,
continuing
you
to
know.
perform
I
bank
mean,
reversals in the atmosphere to control its distance to the landing target.
the famous example is that of the Beagle, which was a UK Mars lander that well, they thought originally it crash landed, but it turned out that it landed successfully, but one of its solar panels didn't open, so it wasn't able to communicate with us.
1 kilometers per second at an altitude of about 16 kilometers from the surface of Mars. We have entered heading alignment, which means Perseverance is no longer trying to control the distance to Mars, to the target on Mars, but instead is flying straight to the target.
So its parachute should deploy soon, because if it's only 16 kilometers up and it's traveling at that speed, we're waiting for the parachutes now. This really is terrifying. I'm so stressed. Your name is on that spacecraft, I have to tell you, don't forget. Your name is literally
Our
on that.
current velocity is about 550 meters per second at an altitude of about 15 kilometers from the surface.
Your little name is on that spacecraft. I'll wait for it to come up, it'll make more sense.
Cameras reporting good telemetry log.
We are coming upon the straighten up. We are starting the straighten up and fly right maneuver, where the spacecraft will jettison the entry balance masses in preparation for parachute deploy and to roll over to give the
Your little
radar a
name?
better look at the ground.
Your little name, Oscar, on that spacecraft there, going to land on the surface of
Navigation
Mars.
has confirmed that the parachute has deployed, and we are seeing significant deceleration in the velocity. Our current velocity is 480 meters per second at an altitude of about 12 kilometers from the surface of Mars.
Okay, great. So the parachute is open now. It's not a very good stream, is it?
Perseverance is now slowed
I think
to
there's a lot of
subsonic
people watching
speeds,
this.
and the heat shield has been separated. This allows both the radar and the cameras to get their first look at the surface. Current velocity is 145 meters per second at an altitude of about 9.5 kilometers above the surface.
So when the heat shield comes off, then radar is used to find what distance the spacecraft is above the Martian surface, and then at a certain point, the the landing module will come out, will drop out.
Now has radar lock on the ground.
Excellent.
Current velocity is about 100 meters per second, 6.6 kilometers above the surface. Perseverance is continuing to descend on the parachute. We are coming on the initialization of terrain relative navigation and subsequently the priming of the landing engines. Our current velocity is about 90 meters per second at an altitude of 4.2 kilometers.
Oh, look at all these people are just so tense now. Can you imagine? Imagine being in that room.
We have confirmation that the lander vision system has produced a valid solution and part of terrain relative navigation.
Right, so it's found a good landing spot, basically.
We have priming of the landing engines.
So the landing engines are now being primed.
Current velocity is 83 meters per second at about 2.6
Next,
kilometers from the surface of Mars.
the spacecraft will
Confirmation
drop
that
out.
the back shell has separated.
Separation,
We are
okay.
currently performing the divert maneuver. Current velocity is about 75 meters per second at an altitude of about a kilometer off the surface of Mars.
So it's just 1,000 meters up now. So these
We have
8 retro
completed our
thrusters
terrain
are
relative
firing.
navigation. Current speed is about 30 meters per second, altitude of about 300 meters off the surface.
300 meters. It's looking for a place to land now, and it will drop. It will lower the rover down with wires using a crane.
Our constant velocity accordion, which means we are conducting a sky crane about to conduct the side crane maneuver.
Sky crane.
We've lost
The Rover's coming out now.
Sky crane maneuver has started.
The Rover's being dropped down now.
About 20
Lowered.
meters off the surface.
20 meters down to go.
We're getting signals from MRO.
UHF is good. Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance, take place on the surface of Mars.
Touchdown confirmed.
Taking the end of past life.
Whee.
At this point, the service stage has flown away to stage shift search. Perseverance is continuing to transmit direct through Mars orbiter to Earth.
Can't wait to see that. I don't know, I think the upload link is something like 2 megabytes a second, so it'll take a while.
No,
Of course, they're still getting telemetry from the lander.
Maybe.
Alright, off station. Touchdown.
We're gonna wait for the image.
So now we're going to wait for the images. We will see our first image of the Martian
It's
surface
so surreal.
now. That is going to be epic. Yeah, isn't that epic though? It's now in Jezero crater. It's landed. It's yeah, it's absolutely epic what they did. And the thing is as well, that spacecraft, from the moment it enters the well, almost from the moment it leaves Earth, it's essentially completely autonomous. It does its own thing. It's not
Yeah,
controlled
we
by
just heard the news
someone.
that Perseverance is alive on the surface of Mars.
Flight. What have you seen the completion of EDL 2000?
And your name is on the surface of Mars right now, Oscar.
MRO is still seeing a strong signal from the lander.
Oh, all that work as well. That's so worth it.
We have just heard the news that Perseverance is alive on the surface of Mars. Congratulations to the mission. And looks like we have some more
Here
news.
we are, we've got
Looks
some
like we're getting the
photos,
first
maybe.
Image.
Oh,
Here, take a
well, they
look
could
at
make it a bit bigger, couldn't they? A tiny small image.
I have,
Look at this, a tiny small image up there.
when you are ready.
We are ready on round 3. Go for it.
That's they're just getting themselves sorted, aren't they?
Flight, I'll be moving in, showing you the safe zone that we've landed in.
Okay, so oh, there it is. Wow, look at that. That is awesome. That's a
Just
really
the first
clean
image from Perseverance on the surface of Mars. Now it comes from the engineering camera, known as the hazard camera. This camera is mainly used to help the rover drive safely around Mars,
Yeah, it's a
and we will
basic
get
image.
higher resolution photos later
It's
in
only
the day.
basic, yeah. The main head, I think, look at that. Oh. I'm excited that Oscar Graham is on there, you know? It's so excited. I would love to see the. Well, how about that then, Oscar? I don't know what they're planning to do now. I mean, obviously we've got an image. Oh, we've got another image as well. Now you can see on the screen now. It's quite a good quality image as well. They're from the well, they're apparently the so-called engineering cameras. So not the main head camera.
second image in. Our second image is in.
Okay, these we have a camera in the front and rear of the spacecraft. They're near the ground, so these are pretty close. You can see the wheels there, and they're a little dirty because we've got glass covers over these cameras. But we took these seconds after landing, so there's still dust in the air from our landing event. So this is happening. This happened just seconds ago. Just a
Look at that.
This is really amazing. And we even know where we landed. This is the most amazing thing. Their vehicle has told us where it's landed because we figured it out. This is a sign. NASA works. NASA works. And when we put our hearts together and our hands together and our brains together, we can succeed. This is what NASA does. This is what we can do as a country. On all of the problems we have, we need to work together to do these kinds of things and make success happen.
Okay, Oscar, I'm going to sign out now from Mission Control Halford. Your name is on Mars. It will be there forever, and which I think is awesome. We'll continue to put your name on all the future missions and to clock up those space miles for you. And yeah, well, see you. Bye-bye.